Now on BBC Radio 4, in the second of two programmes, the actor Bernard Cribbins looks back on 70 years in show business in conversation with his longtime producer Martin Jenkins and a cast of famous friends in Bernard Who?
You ready, Mr. Cribbins?
What? Oh, right, Johnny. Okay. Oh, just a minute. Right.
When I first met Bernard Cribbins, I walked into a pub where David Tennant and Kylie Minogue were doubled over with laughter because Bernard Cribbins had just pulled a rubber chicken out of a suitcase.
He has all that twinkle about him, and all that warmth, and all that sort of magic. So I was thrilled and slightly starstruck that we got him in Doctor Who.
Nice little bit of the old Doctor Flim-Flam sort of thing.
It's a bit like stuffing Jack-in-a-box into a box, and then all he does is jump straight out. You know, he's unpredictable and delightful because of it.
To have a childhood hero of yours going on the tannoy, the speaker system backstage, telling you to get ready as a Womble is fantastic. Hello, my little Wombles. In 5 minutes it'll be curtain up, so you better get dressed.
Thank you very much. Lovely, lovely.
There's a bit of impish glee, there's a cheek, there's an honesty, there's a real bubbling energy. The man is so full of energy, but in the end you can't define it. It's simply Bernard Cribbins.
Oh!
I know for so many people Bernard Cribbins is a supreme storyteller, a musical comedian and a very versatile character actor. In the first programme we heard how his career started at Oldham Repertory Theatre, of his time in the Parachute Regiment, his first West End role in 1956, his early film career, and of course the huge success of the two songs recorded in the early 1960s for Parlophone, Hole in the Ground and Right Said Fred.
Right said Fred, both of us together, one each end and steady as we go. Tried to shift it, couldn't even lift it, we was getting nowhere, and so we had a cup of tea and right said...
Bernard, how did these two songs come about?
I was doing a review at the Fortune Theatre called And Another Thing, and I had a song in that called Folk Song, which was a silly yokel thing, which I did with a big flower and counted off the days of the week on this thing. George Martin was then A&R man for Parlophone, and part of his job was to go around West End musical shows, reviews, etc., and if possible, he would then record stuff from the show. Anyway, he came to see our show, decided to record Folk Song and another one for the B-side. Folk Song, A-side, sold, I don't know, quite a lot in a couple of weeks. Parlophone thought, hello, we've got something here, and asked for something else. Ted Dixon, Miles Rudge, then wrote Hole in the Ground, followed by Right Said Fred, and that was it.
Well, before I was in Abbey Road with the Beatles, I was in Abbey Road with Bernard Cribbins in 1962. I would be recording these comedians. Peter Sellers, of course, was the most famous, Spike too, and of course Bernie. And Bernie was the easiest to work with, and he was a natural. I loved making his records. With him, he had a delightful kind of style, and when you listened to a Bernard Cribbins record, you felt better for it. It buoyed you up.
Well, there we were, discussing this hole in the ground, so big and sort of round it was, it's not there now. The ground's all flat, and beneath it is the bloke in the bowler hat. And that's that.
And he was wonderful. He was so kind and helpful to someone who'd never recorded before, saying, just pull back a bit on that and can you come in a bit closer? You know, it was technique I was being taught at the same time, which was lovely. Hole in the Ground was actually chosen by Noel Coward when he did Desert Island Discs. And then at the end of the programme, Roy Plumley says, if you could only take one record, which would you take? And apparently the master said, oh, I would take Mr. Cribbins singing Hole in the Ground. Why is that? He said, I could walk up and down the beach translating it into French. I never met the gentleman, but I would love to have said thank you very much for giving us a plug. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
But why no more? I mean, you would have thought with those two and Gossip Calypso, that would have been a whole new side to the career.
The rock and roll thing came in with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all the rest of the guys, you know. And the whole music scene just sort of shifted, that was all. And the funny comedy records became not as popular, that's all, or were overshadowed by the others. Yeah.
Now, I suppose most people will always remember you for Jackanory. This seemed to be almost the seat you could sit in with absolute comfort and just tell stories.
I loved it. I used to love doing Jackanory. People, I mean, other actors used to say, how do I get on to doing Jackanory? Prince Charles did one. He rang me up and he said, how do I get on Jackanory? And I told him, I said, just send me a few quid and you'll be on there, governor. And I was very, very fortunate. I had wonderful stories to read. Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, Arabella and her Raven, that, you know, all those. I was really very, very lucky with some wonderful tales to tell.
Arabelle was little and fair, with grey eyes. She was wearing a white nightdress that made her look like a lampshade with 2 feet sticking out from the bottom. "What's the matter, Ma?" she said. "There's a great awful bird in the fridge," sobbed Mrs. Jones, "and it's eaten all the cheese and a blackcurrant tart and 5 pints of milk and a bowl of dripping and a pound of sausages. All that's left is the lettuce." "Then we'll have lettuce for breakfast," said Arabelle.
Of course, your work on Jackanory really was listened to by whole generations of actors who were still inspired by your ability to bring a story to life, and one of those was David Tennant.
Yeah.
There were lots of people who presented Jackanory, apparently, but I only really remember Bernard doing it. I mean, he was on it a lot. I think he holds a record. And if you have the great privilege of meeting Bernard in life, he will spin a yarn and tell stories sort of all day, and it's never tiresome. You only ever want to hear more. But he's worked with them all, so he can tell you about Hitchcock and Peter Sellers and David Niven. He can spin a yarn and tell these wonderful stories in life and, of course, on screen.
When you're recording those, do you have an imaginary person the other side of the mic?
No, what I always did in my mind, you're reading from autocue, which is shown on the screen, so you look straight through that, and I would isolate in my mind one child, and I am talking to that child. And that's it, basically. You can just concentrate on that one person.
One character I think everybody loves universally is Albert Perks in The Railway Children.
Yeah, it did work very, very well. And it was totally sentimental and of its type and of its time. It was lovely.
And it was directed by your old friend Lionel Jeffries.
Right, you can tell me what you mean by it. Have I ever complained to you of being short as you start this charity with me?
We thought you'd be so pleased, Mr. Perks. I'll never try and be kind to anyone else as long as I live. We thought you'd love it. They're from all sorts of people in the village.
And who put them up to it, I'd like to know?
He did.
Was that Jenny Agutter's first job? Or
No, she'd stripped naked in some other film. Didn't do it in our film. I don't know why. It would have been probably a different certificate, wouldn't it?
He has the responsibility of an adult and the imagination of a child, which is not limited. And that's actually something that Edith Nesbit would have delighted in, because that's the ideal, you know, to be able to grow up, keep your imagination with you, take responsibility, but still have that way of looking at the world where everything is just new and fresh and exciting. And I think that that's what he also has to offer, is that nothing's ever stale. He seems always to be enjoying new projects, new ideas. He's eternally young because he's always looking forward to things. That's an extraordinary thing to be around, and also it imbues his work with something very special.
The Wombles, of course, directed by Ivor Wood, were also very special.
This is the home of the Wombles. And there's great Uncle Bulgaria.
Get wombling, young Wombles. There's nothing like work to keep you young and fit.
Did he say keep fit? Yeah. Well, come on then. Let's go and do it.
Now, the Wombles, this was another range of voices.
Don't start on the Wombles.
Now,
please.
Where did you find all that range?
They were actually very easy to find. The writing was such that I almost knew immediately I read it what they would sound like. because Elizabeth Beresford, bless her, had written Uncle Bulgaria, for instance. He's in charge of the borough. So he's the great avuncular or head of the clan or whatever. So you can make him a bit like that. The next one down was Tobermory, who was like the sergeant major, the foreman. So, oi, you, over here, you know what I mean? He's bossy and very efficient. And then you got the lower orders like Orinoco, who was the skiver. And he's the one the kids all loved, because he used to sort of skive off and go and have a little munch of something, you know. There was a rather sad one. Tomsk was the sort of muscular one. If they wanted something heavy moved, they got Tomsk in. And we got to about, 30 or 40 episodes in, and I listened to the previous episodes to pick up the voices when I'd gone in to record the next session. And I found that Tomsk had regressed somewhat. Instead of being just sort of a bit quiet like that, you know, he got all like that, boy. And I thought, oh my goodness, we must regenerate him. So we had to sort of kick him around just a little bit, you know. But he'd become a total imbecile who had muscles. It was rather sad. And then Madame Cholet came in, the little French lady. I do believe that she and Uncle Bulgaria were having an affair, but
never to be mentioned.
It was never to be mentioned, not at 20 to 6 of an evening before the watershed and everything.
We've been talking a great deal, really, about the comedy side, about the storytelling side. And we know when you were in Oldham, for example, you played Stanley in Streetcar Named Desire.
Yeah,
much
right.
tougher, much heavier roles.
Yeah, proper dramatic piece.
Dramatic stuff. Now, is there a part of you that would like to have done more of that? I mean, I remember again working with you on a play by Wally K. Daly, where you played a very troubled priest, which was a much darker piece. Or again, is it just, I'm a character actor, so
That's
I do it?
That's exactly it, Martin. I'm a character actor. If I'm being a silly old, I nearly said something then, but I won't, a silly old gentleman, then you're a silly old gentleman. But if you're somebody who's got a story to tell that is sad, pathetic, frightened, terrifying, or whatever it is, that's what you do, you know. You use the stuff that the author's given you and put flesh on it, you know. You can get a rubbish script that you've got to do, and you'll do your damnedest with it, but it won't work as well as the one you're talking about, for instance, you know, which is good writing.
And For I Have Sinned definitely was quality writing.
A secret button had been pushed deep inside my being. A button that had triggered a lethal hidden weapon that had been growing there throughout my entire Catholic life. I, too, could have found it in my heart to defend the faith by killing that less-than-human creature that would have destroyed it. I didn't kill him, but I could have done. I could have done.
I remember the most memorable story he told that I was falling about with laughter concerned Tommy Cooper while waiting for D-Mob and standing guard at midnight. But the point is, I'm not going to tell you the story because it's quite the funniest story of Tommy Cooper I've heard, and it's Bernard's story. So next time we see him, say, tell us a Tommy Cooper story that Wally K went on about.
This was Tommy Cooper in the army. I think he was in the Welsh Fusiliers. Anyway, the story was that he was on guard in the middle of the night. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning or something, and he drops off for a minute. He closes his eyes and he's gone, and he opens his eyes, and there in front of him is the commanding officer and the sergeant major. And he looks at them, and there's a pause, and he closes his eyes again and says, Amen. And that's it. And I think that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Caught out, what shall I do? Amen. Sorted. Wonderful. Yeah.
I'm with Bernard Cribbins, and we're talking about his 70 action-packed years in the business.
I like
Action-packed.
That, yes. Makes me sound like the Beano.
And, of course, on top of all the stage work, the radio, the television work, you've also done an enormous amount for charity. And I think one of the charities you've supported is Sparks.
It is indeed, yes, yes. I must say that an awful lot of people in show business do an immense amount for charity because you feel you can use your popularity, notoriety, whatever it is, to help to raise funds for whatever charity you have in mind. Sparks, I've been involved with for long, 30-something years, I don't know. It stands for Sport Aiding Medical Research for Kids, and that is exactly what happens. And all we do is go out and have a marvellous time playing golf and help to raise these funds. It's terrific.
And it's John Shanley, isn't it,
He's in charge of Sparks at the moment. Yes, he is indeed. Very, very good too. Well done, John.
Bernard is a hunting, shooting, fishing man. I mean, I think that probably stems from his days as a paratrooper. He attends all of the Sparks clay shoots. And whenever I see him, actually, he's always just come back from shooting or fishing somewhere. I think Bernard is very conscious that there are lots of children that won't get the opportunities that he's had to play sport, to take part in sport, and to have a great career like he's had. And the opportunity to use his fame to help people who are less fortunate, I'm sure is foremost in his mind. I think he's one of the kindest men you would ever meet. And actually, his wife Jill is one of the kindest ladies you'll ever meet too. So they're a great pair together.
Jill, you met Bernard in the early 1950s?
Yes, when he came, I went up to Oldham and he was there.
And married in 1955?
Yes.
And did the actual wedding day all go to plan?
No, it was total chaos. Because we had planned to get married. Bernard was then living in Diggs in London, and we'd planned to get married in the early afternoon, and he suddenly got offered a job by Stuart Burge to go down to Hornchurch and work there. So the actual wedding day, we had to switch to the wedding service to the middle of the morning and then go and have a quick snack my mother had organised for everybody. And then he dashed off and did a matinee.
And has life been like that ever since, in a way?
Absolutely, ever since, yes.
Is Bernard easy to live with? I mean, is somebody that you both get on extremely well, obviously, but if he's not working or he is working, is he sort of easy to cope with?
I think we're both fairly volatile, actually. So there are moments when sort of sparks fly all over the place, but that's just part of living together, isn't it? And there is a great deal of tension in the job he does, and the fact that the demand is that you get into the West End or wherever you're on tour, and you give 100% of everything you have to produce the best performance you can. So it obviously produces a certain amount of tension, but it's exciting too. It's what we both love. It's a business we both love. We love going to the theatre. We love being part of a theatre.
Bernard, there's something wonderful about playing a role in a perfect musical, and you've done one or two of them.
I've
certainly
done a lot of musicals, yes, for somebody who had no musical training or whatever. No, musicals I absolutely adore. Which one are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about Anything Goes.
Oh, yes.
With Elaine Page.
Elaine Page, I know him, yes. Little fella, yeah, used to be a jockey, yes. Elaine and I had a great time on that. We got on very, very well. She used to come and shoot clay pigeons with us as well. Very good shot for a short person.
You know, in the theatre we all give each other first night gifts, and Bernard's to mine was fish. He gave me carp. 3 huge carp, like huge goldfish, and we named them Reno for the character I played, Moonface after him, and Billy after Billy Crocker. That was Bernard. He's got a great wacky sense of humour. That was one of the most unusual first night gifts. I think probably the most unusual first night gift I've ever been given.
It's quite true that, because she had a goldfish pond in her back garden in Chelsea or somewhere, I think. Didn't have any fish in it, and I thought that was a bit pointless, you know. I think she ate them eventually. Yes, very nice, few chips, and that was it.
And John Barryman, this was his first job?
It was his first job, yes. He'd been living in America with his parents over there. His father was working in America. There he was, 6 foot tall, gleaming teeth, quite beautiful, and sang very well and leapt about like a good un, and he was off.
I didn't have any family around me or friends, so Bernie kind of took me under his wing, and that, and he started the process of teaching me the old school ways of doing things. Sitting back and watching his comic timing on stage and watching how he did things, and I cherish those because there's so many people nowadays who don't have that old school, firm kind of training, and I thank Bernie for it.
I know you once said to me that if there was only one musical that you could have appeared in really for your whole life, it would have been Guys and Dolls, that this gave you the greatest pleasure playing Nathan Detroit at the National Theatre. What was so special?
It wasn't so much the actual musical, the show, although that was, 75% of it must be. It was at the National Theatre, on the Olivia stage, Richard Eyre directed. It's the most wonderful piece anyway. It's got a great story, a wonderful score, lovely lyrics, and the company that Richard had assembled was one of the best ensemble pieces I've ever been involved with. Nobody messed about. I always said it was like being back in the Paris. Everybody was pointing in the same direction, and it worked every single performance. It was wonderful. And we only did 75, 80 performances, that's all, but it was an absolute joy. I used to run to get there early just to be ready,
What Bernard brought to it was not only his considerable skill and bravura, but he lit up the stage, and his joy at being part of it was so transparent, and it kind of spread throughout the rest of the company. The common misconception about actors, about performers, is that they are show-offs. It's very rare, in the case of the good ones, that that's true. Mostly they're quite shy, they're quite retiring people. Most actors, and Bernie is a perfect example, act because it's a way of vicariously being everything that you aren't. Extrovert and merry and the life and soul of the party.
Is that true? Because you always present such a strong outward personality, but is there still something inside that's a little shy?
I think there probably is, but it probably has become less and less over the years, No, I'm basically noisy now. Yes, rushing about and shouting a lot. And trying to enjoy myself, really, yes.
It seems, Bernard, that in a way the name Bernard Cribbins keeps cropping up generationally. You have the wonderful songs, Right Said Fred.
Yep.
Then it's the Wombles, Jackanory. Then suddenly again we get Doctor Who.
Oh, yes.
One of the great iconic television programmes.
Oh, yes.
And you're the only person to have actually faced the legendary Daleks on both film and television.
That's right, yes, I did Daleks Invade Earth 2015 with Peter Cushing again, and then, of course, I was in recently with David Tennant, as Doctor.
The writer and producer for Doctor Who was Russell T Davies.
He was indeed, yes.
And he created this wonderful, memorable character called
Wilfred Mott, yes, who was the grandfather of Catherine Tate, who became the companion for the Doctor.
There's something of an ideal grandfather about Wilfred, except Bernard's too good an actor to run away with a bland description like that. It's what he brings to it is detail and precision and warmth and depth. And the brilliant thing for me was, and this happens a few times in your career, is you come across actors who you suddenly realise are limitless. And to see Bernard and to realise that he could go anywhere, until eventually we were pushing these scripts into areas where lovable, friendly old Wilfred Mott was watching concentration camps being set up in Great Britain. There were some very, very dark stories. And to give Bernard down, to see him doing the whole range of tragedy and darkness on top of the funny stuff that you knew he could do, was such an eye-opener. It was such an education for me. And he can break your heart with a single line. He's absolutely astonishing actor.
Oh, 1948, I was over there. End of the mandate in Palestine. Private Mott Skinny little idiot I was. Stood on this rooftop in the middle of a skirmish. It's like a blizzard, all them bullets in the air. Yeah, you don't want to listen to an old man's tales, do you?
I'm older than you.
Get away.
I'm 906. In the scene, there's a lot of Bernard's own war experiences written into the script. So when you hear Wells talking about that, it's also Bernard talking about standing on a roof and the shrapnel and the war raging around him. And of course that just adds an extra piquancy to playing those scenes. You just sort of swim in his eyes. There's something heart-stopping about Bernard.
You take this, that's an order, Doctor, take the gun.
Russell T Davies saw all the warmth and all the twinkle that Bernard has, and I think he also saw a very wonderful, rather serious, very moving actor in there too. And I think we were hugely fortunate on Doctor Who that we got to exploit that, and I think perhaps surprise some people with just how good Bernard is.
I know you were very proud when you received your OBE in 2011 for services to drama. Long overdue.
They didn't mention comedy at all, it was just drama, you know.
Yes.
I thought, oh, she saw that one, did she? Yes, all right.
Looking back over the career, do you have any regrets at all? Are there any parts that you would really love to have played?
Oh, goodness gracious, what a question, Martin. There must be, but I can't think of one at the moment, but there must have been times when I thought, wish I could have got a hold of that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think years and years and years ago I would probably like to have tried America, but that didn't happen because I was too busy working half the time. So ducking and diving and doing a bit of this and a bit of that and some of that and some of this, you know, is very useful sometimes. I've enjoyed it very much indeed. I'm still enjoying it.
What do you think your mum and dad would have thought of this little lad from Oldham?
They were very pleased and proud that I was very happy that they'd seen some of the work, you know. They didn't see an awful lot of it because they left us, you know, a long time ago. But I think they did enjoy what they saw, and he has done well. Yeah, that was Ethel.
And you still looking for work, still want the challenges?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, well, I've got a wife and fishing rods to keep, you know what I mean? Yes. No, I enjoy my job, thank goodness, and I've been very fortunate in the jobs that I've had, the work I've done. And I always look forward to the next one, particularly. Yeah, see what happens.
You've given countless millions a huge amount of pleasure.
Could you ask all of them to send me a quid?
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yes.
A lot of money.
Be like the lottery. No, it's been fun, it's been good, and I hope it goes on for a bit longer, certainly.
Bernard Cribbins was talking to Martin Jenkins. The programme was produced by Eve Streeter, and it was a Pier production for BBC Radio 4.